functions. Liftoff of mission 41B, the first flight of the orbiter Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
Discovery Houston, trim to ATO.
Beautiful, beautiful. Alright, hello, and welcome to the Merry Mitch stream. Shoot, I hope everybody's having a good night so far, and I hope you're ready for some good storytelling. Let's see, my day's been pretty darn good. Got a bit of a late start to it, but you know, that happens. My breakfast was mighty fine though. I wound up eating some eggs, some granola with almond milk. It was super yummy, and it got me ready for the rest of the day. So, last time on the Mark of Athena, we saw Leo and Hazel come across this character, Narcissus, supposedly the son of Nemesis, the goddess of revenge. Narcissus was a human who was cursed to fall in love with his own reflection. So, thus they found him by a pond, staring down into it at this piece of celestial bronze that gave him the best reflection of himself that he had ever seen. The conflict here, though, was Leo and Hazel needed that piece of celestial bronze to fix the Argo 2. So, they approached him along with Echo, a girl that they came across that seemed to be camouflaged into her surroundings. Like literally camouflaged. No matter where she moved, her clothing, her features would all shift to match whatever was behind her. She was also mute. She was cursed, along with Narcissus, to only ever be able to repeat the last thing that she ever heard. So she was a lot like a Kenku in that way. If you know, for those that know D&D, she is in love, desperately in love with Narcissus. So she wanted them to help Narcissus, and she believed that getting this piece of celestial bronze out of there might wind up helping him. And so they did just that, hatching a scheme where Leo came in all dressed to the nines and looking like a, looking like a cool dude, with some, sunglasses / goggles on, and his sleeves rolled up, and he started acting like the big man on campus in order to distract Narcissus as well as his horde of nymphs. The distraction was very successful and gave Hazel enough time to draw the celestial bronze through the earth and to herself. They ran for the hills after that, making their way as quick as they could to the beach. And once they were there, Hazel called out to her steed, Arian, and they made their escape. Not before some parting words to Echo from Leo. Believing that himself and Echo were kind of like two birds of a feather, fading into the background, a third wheel, an unimportant part to a whole. That part was pretty pretty intimate. and quite a way to leave off a chapter. So, without further ado, I believe that leads us up to where we are now. So, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this bedtime story. This is The Mark of Athena by Rick Riordan. Chapter 9. Piper. Piper didn't want to use the knife, but sitting in Jason's cabin, waiting for him to wake up, she felt alone and helpless. Jason's face was so pale, he might have been dead. She remembered the awful sound of that brick hitting his forehead, an injury that had happened only because he tried to shield her from the Romans. Even with the nectar and ambrosia they'd managed to force-feed him, Piper couldn't be sure he would be okay when he woke. What if he lost his memories again? But this time, his memories of her. That would be the cruelest trick the gods had played on her yet. And they'd played some pretty cruel tricks. She heard Gleason Hedge in the next room, humming a military song, Stars and Stripes Forever, I think. Since the satellite TV was out, the satyr was probably sitting on his bunk, reading back issues of Guns and Ammo magazine. He wasn't a bad chaperone, but he was definitely the most warlike old goat Piper had ever met. Of course, she was grateful for the satyr. He had helped her dad, movie actor Tristan McLean, get back on his feet after being kidnapped by giants the past winter. A few weeks ago, Hedge had asked his girlfriend, Melly, to take charge of the McLean household so he could come along to help with this quest. Coach Hedge had tried to make it sound like returning to Camp Half-Blood had been all his idea, but Piper suspected there was more to it. The last few weeks, whenever Piper called home, her dad and Melly had asked her what was wrong. Maybe something in her voice had tipped them off. Piper couldn't share the visions she'd seen. They were too disturbing. Besides, her dad had taken a potion that had erased all of Piper's demigod secrets from his memory. But he could still tell when she was upset. And she was pretty sure her dad had encouraged Coach to look out for her. She shouldn't draw her blade. It would only make her feel worse. Finally, the temptation was too great. She unsheathed Catoptris. It didn't look very special. Just a triangular blade with an unadorned hilt. But it had once been owned by Helen of Troy. The dagger's name meant looking glass. Piper gazed at the bronze blade. At first, she saw only her reflection. Then light rippled across the metal. She saw a crowd of Roman demigods gathered in the forum. The blonde, scarecrow-looking kid, Octavian, was speaking to the mob, shaking his fist. Piper couldn't hear him, but the gist was obvious. We need to kill those Greeks. Reyna the Praetor stood to one side, her face tight with suppressed emotion. Bitterness? Anger? Piper wasn't sure. She'd been prepared to hate Reyna, but she couldn't. During the feast in the forum, Piper had admired the way Reyna kept her feelings in check. Reyna had sized up Piper and Jason's relationship right away. As a daughter of Aphrodite, Piper could tell stuff like that. Yet Reyna had stayed polite and in control. She'd put her camp's needs ahead of her emotions. She'd given the Greeks a fair chance, right up until the Argo II had started destroying her city. She'd almost made Piper feel guilty about being Jason's girlfriend, though that was silly. Jason hadn't ever been Reyna's boyfriend, not really. Maybe Reyna wasn't so bad, but it didn't matter now. They'd messed up the chance for peace. Piper's power of persuasion had, for once, done absolutely no good. Her secret fear? Maybe she hadn't tried hard enough. Piper had never wanted to make friends with the Romans. She was too worried about losing Jason to his old life. Maybe unconsciously, she hadn't put her best effort into the charm speak. Now Jason was hurt. The ship had been almost destroyed. And according to her dagger, the crazy teddy bear strangling kid, Octavian, was whipping the Romans into a war frenzy. The scene in her blade shifted. There was a rapid series of images she'd seen before, but she still didn't understand them. Jason riding into battle on horseback, his eyes gold instead of blue. A woman in an old-fashioned southern belle dress, standing in an oceanside park with palm trees. A bull with the face of a bearded man, rising out of a river. And two giants in matching yellow togas, hoisting a rope on a pulley system, lifting a large bronze vase out of a pit. Then came the worst vision. She saw herself with Jason and Percy, standing waist-deep in water at the bottom of a dark, circular chamber, like a giant well. Ghostly shapes moved through the water as it rose rapidly. Piper clawed at the walls, trying to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The water reached their chests. Jason was pulled under. Percy stumbled and disappeared. How could a child of the sea god drown? Piper didn't know, but she watched herself in the vision, alone and thrashing in the dark, until the water rose over her head. Piper shut her eyes. "Don't show me that again," she pleaded. "Show me something helpful." She forced herself to look at the blade again. This time, she saw an empty highway cutting between fields of wheat and sunflowers. A mileage marker read, Topeka 32. On the shoulder of the road stood a man in khaki shorts and a purple camp shirt. His face was lost in the shadow of a broad hat, the brim wreathed in leafy vines. He held up a silver goblet and beckoned to Piper. Somehow, she knew he was offering her some sort of gift, a cure, or an antidote. "Hey," Jason croaked. Piper was so startled she dropped the knife. "You're awake?" "Don't sound so surprised." Jason touched his bandaged head and frowned. What happened? I remember the explosions and... You remember who I am? You remember who I am? Jason tried to laugh, but it turned into a painful wince. Last I checked, you were my awesome girlfriend, Piper. Unless something has changed since I was out. Piper was so relieved she almost sobbed. She helped him sit up and gave him some nectar to sip while she brought him up to speed. She was just explaining Leo's plan to fix the ship when she heard horse hooves clomping across the deck over their heads. Moments later, Leo and Hazel stumbled to a stop in the doorway, carrying a large sheet of hammered bronze between them. Gods of Olympus! Piper stared at Leo. What happened to you? Oh, what happened to you? His hair was greased back. He had welding goggles on his forehead, a lipstick mark on his cheek, tattoos all over his arms, and a t-shirt that read, "Hot Stuff, Bad Boy, and Team Leo." Long story, he said. Others back? Not yet, Piper said. Leo cursed. Then he noticed Jason sitting up, and his face brightened. Hey, man! Glad you're better. I'll be in the engine room. He ran off with the sheet of bronze, leaving Hazel in the doorway. Piper raised an eyebrow at her. Team Leo? We met Narcissus, Hazel said, which didn't really explain much. Also, Nemesis, the revenge goddess. Jason sighed. I miss all the fun. On the deck above, something went as if a heavy creature had landed. Annabeth and Percy came running down the hall. Percy was toting a steaming 5-gallon plastic bucket that smelled horrible. Annabeth had a patch of black sticky stuff in her hair. Percy's shirt was covered in it. Roofing tar? Piper guessed. Frank stumbled up behind them, which made the hallway pretty jam-packed with demigods. Frank had a big smear of black sludge down his face. Ran into some tar monsters, Annabeth said. Hey, Jason. Glad you're awake. Hazel, where's Leo? She pointed down. Engine room. Suddenly, the entire ship listed to port. The demigod stumbled. Percy almost spilled his bucket of tar. What was that? He demanded. Oh, Hazel looked embarrassed. We may have angered the nymphs who live in the lake. Like, all of them. Great. Percy handed the bucket of tar to Frank and Annabeth. You guys help Leo. I'll hold off the water spirits as long as I can. On it, Frank promised. The three of them ran off, leaving Hazel at the cabin door. The ship listed again, and Hazel hugged her stomach like she was going to be sick. I'll just... She swallowed, pointed weakly down the passageway, and ran off. Yo, what's up, Sammy? Of course I'm alive. I took Sunday off, but I was on for an hour on Saturday. Saturday's stream was super short because my D&D game went for about 5 hours. So, by the end of that, I was pretty pooped. Yeah, man. I'm glad you made it. We are about halfway through the first chapter. Yeah, I hope the week has started off smooth for you, man. It is Monday, and the week has begun. The week has not begun? Come on now. let's see. So, I'll at least let you know what's going on currently in the chapter. They are being accosted by lake nymphs. They're on a flying ship, and all the lake nymphs that Leo and Hazel pissed off are now laying into the ship, trying to take it down. Jason just woke up from his coma, and Piper is having like wild visions of some pretty unnerving stuff that is going on, I guess, in other parts of the world. Because she has a dagger, Catoptris, that lets her see almost like a looking glass into, or almost like a scrying spell from D&D. You've been able to work on your creative side? That's good, man. Feed those passions. And find the shape of your dream. That's what I'm trying to do. Alright, let's see. Jason and Piper stayed below as the ship rocked back and forth. For a hero, Piper felt pretty useless. Waves crashed against the hull as angry voices came from above deck. Percy shouting, Coach Hedge yelling at the lake. Festus the figurehead breathed fire several times. Down the hall, Hazel moaned miserably in her cabin. In the engine room below, it sounded like Leo and the others were doing an Irish line dance with anvils tied to their feet. After what seemed like hours, the engine began to hum. The oars creaked and groaned, and Piper felt the ship lift into the air. Yeah, man, that's, well, Catoptris lets Piper see other parts of the world that they live in, but that'd be pretty wild if you had like a Catoptris that could let you see into other worlds. I imagine it might be something akin to interdimensional TV from Rick and Morty. But it would probably depend on, you know, the world that you tune into. And I'm assuming that like this could show you just any portion of any part of any world, right? So I mean it could be as like simple as a plant in a rainstorm or something on a different planet. But it could be as wild as, goodness, two dragons fighting to the death over ownership of the entire universe or something like that. Yeah, man, it could be a pretty good D&D plot. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there may be a D&D item that is somewhat similar to that. I'd have to look into it though. I like those ideas though. You could have the makings of a DM. All I'm saying. You used to DM? Nice. That's good. I currently am the DM of 2 games. And I'm quite blessed for it. I got a game coming up tomorrow night. Whoo! Oh yeah. And if you are interested in that game, I post them on the Mary Mitch channel. Don't live stream them, but yeah, if you want to check them out, I plop them over there. Well, if you find a good group, I could possibly be a player in the game. You just let me know. The rocking and shaking stopped. The ship became quiet, except for the drone of machinery. Finally, Leo emerged from the engine room. He was caked in sweat, lime dust, and tar. His t-shirt looked like it had been caught in an escalator and chewed to shreds. The Team Leo on his chest now read, "Am Leo." But he grinned like a madman and announced that they were safely underway. "Meeting in the mess hall, 1 hour," he said. "Crazy day, huh?" Whew. I want to try that line again. "Meeting in the mess hall, 1 hour," he said. "Crazy day, huh?" After everyone had cleaned up, Coach Hedge took the helm, and the demigods gathered below for dinner. It was the first time they'd all sat down together. Just the 7 of them. Maybe their presence should have reassured Piper, but seeing all of them in one place only reminded her that the prophecy of 7 was unfolding at last. No more waiting for Leo to finish the ship. No more easy days at Camp Half-Blood, pretending the future was still a long way off. They were underway, with a bunch of angry Romans behind them and the ancient lands ahead. The giants would be waiting. Gaia was rising, and unless they succeed in this quest, the world would be destroyed. The others must have felt it too. The tension in the mess hall was like an electrical storm brewing, which was totally possible considering Percy's and Jason's powers. In an awkward moment, the 2 boys tried to sit in the same chair at the head of the table. Sparks literally flew from Jason's hands. After a brief silent standoff, like they were both thinking, "Seriously, dude?" they ceded the chair to Annabeth and sat at opposite sides of the table. The crew compared notes on what had happened in Salt Lake City, but even Leo's ridiculous story about how he tricked a narcissist wasn't enough to cheer up the group. "So, where to now?" Leo asked with a mouthful of pizza. Hang on, let me do that line again then. "So, where to now?" Leo asked with a mouthful of pizza. "I did a quick repair job to get us out of the lake, but there's still a lot of damage. We should really put down again and fix things right before we head across the Atlantic." Percy was eating a piece of pie, which for some reason was completely blue. Filling, crust, even the whipped cream. "We need to put some distance between us and Camp Jupiter," he said. "Frank spotted some eagles over Salt Lake City. We figure the Romans aren't far behind us." Hey, it's the compliment to my favorite color, which is orange. So I'm a big fan of blue and orange. Those two together, a match made in heaven. That didn't improve the mood around the table. Piper didn't want to say anything, but she felt obliged. And a little guilty. Hey, blue and purple for you? Heck yeah. They say purple is the color of royalty. For what that's worth. I don't suppose we should go back and try to reason with the Romans? Maybe I didn't try hard enough with the charm speak. Jason took her hand. It wasn't your fault, Pipes. or Leo's. He added quickly, whatever happened, it was Gaia's doing, to drive the two camps apart. Piper was grateful for his support, but she still felt uneasy. Maybe if we could explain that, though, with no proof, Annabeth asked, and no idea what really happened. I appreciate what you're saying, Piper. I don't want the Romans on our bad side, but until we understand what Gaia is up to, going back is suicide. She's right, Hazel said, still looking a little queasy from seasickness, but she was trying to eat a few saltine crackers. The rim of her plate was embedded with rubies, and Piper was pretty sure they hadn't been there at the beginning of the meal. Reyna might listen, but Octavian won't. The Romans have honor to think about. They've been attacked. They'll shoot first and ask questions post hoc. Piper stared at her own dinner. The magical plate could conjure up a great selection of vegetarian stuff. She especially liked the avocado and grilled pepper quesadilla. But tonight, she didn't have much of an appetite. She thought about the vision she'd seen in her knife. Jason with golden eyes, the bull with the human head, the two giants in yellow togas hoisting a bronze jar from a pit. Worst of all, she remembered herself drowning in black water. Piper had always liked water. She had good memories of surfing with her dad, but since she'd started seeing that vision in Catoptris, she'd been thinking more and more of an old Cherokee story her granddad used to tell her, to keep her away from the river near his cabin. He told her the Cherokees believed in good water spirits, like the naiads of the Greeks, but they also believed in evil water spirits, the water cannibals, who hunted mortals with invisible arrows and were especially fond of drowning small children. You're right, she decided. We have to keep going. Not just because of the Romans. We have to hurry. Hazel nodded. Nemesis said we have only 6 days until Nico dies in Rome. Until Nico dies and Rome is destroyed. Jason frowned. You mean Rome, not New Rome? You mean Rome, not New Rome. I think, Hazel said. But if so, that's not much time. Why 6 days? Percy wondered. Why 6 days? Percy wondered. And how are they going to destroy Rome? No one answered. Piper didn't want to add further bad news, but she felt she had to. There's more, she said. I've been seeing some things in my knife. The big kid, Frank, froze with a forkful of spaghetti halfway to his mouth. Things such as? They don't really make sense, Piper said. Just garbled images, but I saw 2 giants, dressed alike. Maybe twins. And Beth stared at the magical video feed from Camp Half-Blood on the wall. Right now it showed the living room in the big house, a cozy fire on the hearth, and Seymour, the stuffed leopard head, snoring contentedly above the mantel. Oh hey, no worries, Sammy. I'll see you soon. Twins, like in Ella's prophecy, Annabeth said. If we could figure out those lines, it might help. Wisdom's daughter walks alone, Percy said. The mark of Athena burns through Rome. Annabeth, that's got to mean you. Juno told me... Well, she said you had a hard task ahead of you in Rome. She said she doubted you could do it. But I know she's wrong. Annabeth took a long breath. Reyna was about to tell me something right before the ship fired on us. She said there was an old legend among the Roman praetors. Something that had to do with Athena. She said it might be the reason Greeks and Romans could never get along. Leo and Hazel exchanged nervous looks. Nemesis mentioned something similar, Leo said. She talked about an old score that had to be settled. The one thing that might bring the gods' two natures into harmony, Hazel recalled. An old wrong finally avenged. Percy drew a frowny face in his blue whipped cream. I was only a praetor for about 2 hours. Jason, you ever heard a legend like that? Jason was still holding Piper's hand. His fingers had turned clammy. I'm not sure, he said. I'll give it some thought. Percy narrowed his eyes. You're not sure? Jason didn't respond. Piper wanted to ask him what was wrong. She could tell he didn't want to discuss this old legend. She caught his eye, and he pleaded silently, later. Hazel broke the silence. What about the other lines? She turned her ruby-encrusted plate. Twins snuff out the angel's breath. Who holds the key to endless death? Giant's bane stands gold and pale, Frank added. Won through pain from a woven jail. Giant's bane, Leo said. Anything that's a giant's bane is good for us, right? That's probably what we need to find. If it can help the gods get their schizophrenic act together, that's good. Percy nodded. We can't kill the giants without the help of the gods. Jason turned to Frank and Hazel. I thought you guys killed that one giant in Alaska without a god's help. Just the two of you. Alcyonius was a special case, Frank said. He was only immortal in the territory where he was reborn, Alaska. But not in Canada. I wish I could kill all the giants by dragging them across the border from Alaska into Canada, but... He shrugged. Percy's right. We'll need the gods. Piper gazed at the walls. She really wished Leo hadn't enchanted them with images of Camp Half-Blood. It was like a doorway to home that she could never go through. She watched the hearth of Hestia burning in the middle of the green as the cabins turned off their lights for curfew. She wondered how the Roman demigods, Frank and Hazel, felt about those images. She wondered how the Roman demigods, Frank and Hazel, felt about those images. They'd never even been to Camp Half-Blood. Did it seem alien to them? Or unfair that Camp Jupiter wasn't represented? Did it make them miss their own home? The other lines of the prophecy turned in Piper's mind. What was a woven jail? How could twins snuff out an angel's heart? Oh, an angel's breath. The key to endless death didn't sound very cheerful either. So, Leo pushed his chair away from the table. First things first, I guess. We'll have to put down in the morning. We'll have to put down in the morning to finish repairs. Someplace close to a city. Someplace close to a city, Annabeth suggested. In case we need supplies. But somewhere out of the way, so the Romans will have trouble finding us. Any ideas? No one spoke. Piper remembered her vision in the knife. The strange man in purple, holding out a goblet and beckoning to her. He'd been standing in front of a sign that read, Topeka 32. Well, she ventured. How do you guys feel about Kansas? All right. I left the music going because that was kind of like a deliberation chapter. So, I felt it kind of fit pretty well. Plus, I don't know, I enjoy the music as I read. But hey, you guys let me know if it is at all distracting or, unwelcome. Okay, so I think it's about time for the break ski. So, guys, we've been sitting here enjoying some music and some good story for almost an hour. So now is a good time to stand up and go stretch. Walk around a bit, even if it's just to move your legs, get some water. Trust me, your body will thank you. It's important that we get up every hour to move around a bit. In this world, we are often likely to just sit at our desks for hours on end. But I highly suggest, during the break, take a break from being at the screen. Stand up and, stretch a little bit or do something for you. Alright, much love, guys, and hope you'll join me once we're back in about 10 minutes for Chapter 10. Alright. Till then, guys, I'll be back. Alright, hello, and welcome back. Hope everybody had a super nice break, and I hope you remembered to stretch. Hey, thank you. I did a little bit of stretching myself, took a whiz, and returned before you. Yeah. I think I'm ready for this here chapter 10. I hope you are as well. Alright, so this is The Mark of Athena by Rick Riordan. Chapter 10, Piper. Piper had trouble falling asleep. Coach Edge spent the first hour of curfew doing his nightly duty, walking up and down the passageway yelling,
"Lights out! Settle down! Try to sneak out and I'll smack you back to Long Island!"
He banged his baseball bat against a cabin door whenever he heard a noise, shouting at everyone to go to sleep, which made it impossible for anyone to go to sleep. Piper figured this was the most fun the satyr had since he'd pretended to be a gym teacher at the wilderness school. She stared at the bronze beams on the ceiling. Her cabin was pretty cozy. Leo had programmed their quarters to adjust automatically to the occupants' preferred temperature, so it was never too cold or too hot. The mattress for the pillows were stuffed with Pegasus down. No. Oh. With Pegasus down? No Pegasi were harmed in the making of these products. Leo had assured her. So they were uber comfortable. A bronze lantern hung from the ceiling, glowing at whatever brightness Piper wished. The lantern's sides were perforated with pinholes, so at night, glimmering constellations drifted across the walls. Piper had so many things on her mind, she thought she'd never sleep. But there was something peaceful about the rocking of the boat and the drone of the aerial oars as they scooped through the sky. Finally, her eyelids got heavy, and she drifted off. It seemed like only a few seconds had passed before she woke to the breakfast bell. Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. Yo, Piper! Leo knocked on the door. We're landing! Landing? She sat up groggily. Leo opened her door and poked his head in. He had his hand over his eyes, which would have been a nice gesture if he hadn't been peeking through his fingers. You decent? Leo! Sorry. He grinned. Hey, nice Power Ranger jammies. They are not Power Rangers. They're Cherokee Eagles. Yeah, sure. Anyway, we're setting down a few miles outside Topeka, as requested. And, he glanced out the passageway, then leaned inside again. Thanks for not hating me about blowing up the Romans yesterday. Piper rubbed her eyes. The feast in New Rome had been only yesterday? That's okay, Leo. You weren't in control of yourself. Yeah, but still, you didn't have to stick up for me. Are you kidding? You're like an annoying little brother I never had. Of course I'll stick up for you. Thanks? From above, Coach Hedge yelled.
There she blows! Kansas ahoy!
Holy Hephaestus! Leo muttered. He really needs to work on his ship speak. I'd better get above deck. By the time Piper had showered, changed, and grabbed a bagel from the mess hall, she could hear the ship's landing gear extending. She climbed on the deck and joined the others as the Argo II settled in the middle of a field of sunflowers. The oars retracted. The gangplank lowered itself. The morning air smelled of irrigation, warm plants, and fertilized earth. Not a bad smell. It reminded Piper of Grandpa Tom's place in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, back on the reservation. Percy was the first to notice her. He smiled in greeting, which, for some reason, surprised Piper. He was wearing faded jeans and a fresh orange Camp Half-Blood t-shirt, as if he'd never been away from the Greek side. The new clothes had probably helped his mood, and of course the fact that he was standing at the rail with his arm around Annabeth. Piper was happy to see Annabeth with a sparkle in her eye, because Piper had never had a better friend. For months, Annabeth had been tormenting herself, her every waking moment consumed with the search for Percy. Now, despite the dangerous quest they were facing, at least she had her boyfriend back. So, Annabeth plucked the bagel out of Piper's hands and took a bite, but that didn't bother Piper. Back at camp, they'd had a running joke about stealing each other's breakfast. Here we are. What's the plan? I want to check out the highway, Piper said. Find the sign that says Topeka 32. Leo spun his Wii controller in a circle, and the sails lowered themselves. We shouldn't be far, he said. Festus and I calculated the landing as best we could. What do you expect to find at the mile marker? Piper explained what she'd seen in her knife. The man in purple with a goblet. She kept quiet about the other images, though, like the vision of Percy, Jason, and herself drowning. She wasn't sure what it meant anyway, and everyone seemed in such better spirits this morning. She didn't want to ruin the mood. Purple shirt? Jason asked. Vines on his hat? Sounds like Bacchus. Dionysus, Percy muttered. If we came all the way to Kansas to see Mr. D... Bacchus isn't so bad, Jason said. I don't like his followers much. Piper shuddered. Jason, Leo, and she had an encounter with the Maenads a few months ago, and almost got torn to pieces. But the god himself is okay, Jason continued. I did him a favor once in the wine country. Percy looked appalled. Whatever, man. Maybe he's better on the Roman side, but why would he be hanging around in Kansas? Didn't Zeus order the gods to cease all contact with mortals? Frank grunted. The big guy was wearing a blue tracksuit this morning, like he was ready to go for a jog in the sunflowers. Frank's wearing a tracksuit? Let's go. The gods haven't been very good at following that order, he noted. Besides, if the gods have gone schizophrenic, like Hazel said. And Leo said, added Leo. Frank scowled at him. Then, who knows what's going on with the Olympians? Could be some pretty bad stuff out there. Sounds dangerous, Leo agreed cheerfully. Well, you guys have fun. I've got to finish repairs on the hull. Coach Hedge is going to work on the broken crossbows. And, Annabeth, I could really use your help. You're the only other person who even sort of understands engineering. Annabeth looked apologetically at Percy. He's right. I should stay and help. I'll come back to you. He kissed her on the cheek. Promise. Freaking love those two. They were so easy together. It made Piper's heart ache. Jason was great, of course, but sometimes he acted so distant, like last night, when he'd been reluctant to talk about that old Roman legend. So often he seemed to be thinking of his old life at Camp Jupiter. Piper wondered if she would ever be able to break through that barrier. The trip to Camp Jupiter, seeing Reyna in person, hadn't helped. Neither did the fact that Jason had chosen to wear a purple shirt today, the color of Romans. Frank slid his bow off his shoulder and propped it against the rail. I think I should turn into a crow or something and fly around. keep an eye out for Roman eagles. Why a crow? Leo asked. Man, if you can turn into a dragon, why don't you just turn into a dragon every time? That's the coolest. Frank's face looked like it was being infused with cranberry juice. That's like asking why you don't bench press your maximum weight every time you lift. Because it's hard, and you'd hurt yourself. Turning into a dragon isn't easy. Oh, Leo nodded. I wouldn't know. I don't lift weights. Yeah, well, maybe you should consider it, mister. Hazel stepped between them. I'll help you, Frank, she said, shooting Leo an evil look. I can summon Arian and scout around below. Sure, Frank said, still glaring at Leo. Yeah, thanks. Piper wondered what was going on with those two. Piper wondered what was going on with those three. The boys showing off for Hazel and razzing each other. That she understood. But it almost seemed like Hazel and Leo had a history. So far as she knew, they'd met for the first time just yesterday. She wondered if something else had happened on their trip to the Great Salt Lake. Something they hadn't mentioned. Hazel turned to Percy. Just be careful when you go out there. Lots of fields, lots of crops. Could be carpoi on the loose. Carpoi? Piper asked. Grain spirits, Hazel said. You don't want to meet them. Piper didn't see how a grain spirit could be that bad, but Hazel's tone convinced her not to ask. That leaves 3 of us to check on the mile marker, Percy said. Me, Jason, Piper. I'm not psyched about seeing Mr. D again. That guy is a pain. But, Jason, if you're on better terms with him... Yeah, Jason said. If we find him, I'll talk to him. Piper, it's your vision. You should take the lead. Piper shivered. She'd seen the 3 of them drowning in a dark well. Was Kansas where it would happen? That didn't seem right. But she couldn't be sure. Of course, she said, trying to sound upbeat. Let's find the highway. Leo had said they were close. His idea of close needed some work. After trudging half a mile through hot fields, getting bitten by mosquitoes and whacked in the face with scratchy sunflowers, they finally reached the road. An old billboard for Bubba's Gas and Grub indicated they were still 40 miles from the first Topeka exit. Correct my math, Percy said, but doesn't that mean we have 8 miles to walk? Jason peered both ways down the deserted road. He looked better today, thanks to the magical healing of ambrosia and nectar. His color was back to normal, and the scar on his forehead had almost vanished. The new gladius that Era had given him last winter hung at his belt. Most guys would look pretty awkward walking around with a scabbard strapped to their jeans, but on Jason, it seemed perfectly natural. No cars, he said, but I guess we wouldn't want to hitchhike. No, Piper agreed, gazing nervously down the highway. We've spent too much time going over land. The Earth is Gaia's territory. Jason snapped his fingers. I can call a friend for a ride. Percy raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah? Oh yeah? Me too. Let's see whose friend gets here first. Jason whistled. Piper knew what he was doing, but he'd succeeded in summoning Tempest only 3 times since they'd met the storm spirit at the wolf house last winter. Today, the sky was so blue, Piper didn't see how it could work. Percy simply closed his eyes and concentrated. Piper hadn't studied him up close before. After hearing so much at Camp Half-Blood about Percy Jackson, this, and Percy Jackson that. After hearing so much at Camp Half-Blood about Percy Jackson this and Percy Jackson that, she thought he looked, well, unimpressive, especially next to Jason. Percy was more slender, about an inch shorter, with slightly longer, much darker hair. He wasn't really Piper's type. If she'd seen him in the mall somewhere, she probably would have thought he was a skater. Cute in a scruffy way, a little on the wild side. Definitely a troublemaker. She wouldn't have steered clear. She would have steered clear. She had enough trouble in her life. But she could see why Annabeth liked him. And she could definitely see why Percy needed Annabeth in his life. If anybody could keep a guy like that under control, it was Annabeth. Thunder crackled in the clear sky. Jason smiled. Soon. Too late. Percy pointed east, where a black winged shape was spiraling towards them. At first, Piper thought it might be Frank in crow form. Then, she realized it was much too big to be a bird. A black Pegasus? She said. Never seen one like that. The winged stallion came in for a landing. He trotted over to Percy and nuzzled his face, then turned his head inquisitively toward Piper and Jason. Blackjack, Percy said. This is Piper and Jason. They're friends. The horse snickered. Maybe later, Percy answered. Piper had heard that Percy could speak to horses, being the son of the horse lord Poseidon, but she'd never seen it in action. What does Blackjack want? She asked. Donuts, Percy said. Always donuts. He can carry all 3 of us if... Suddenly, the air turned cold. Piper's ears popped. About 50 yards away, a miniature cyclone, 3 stories tall, tore across the tops of the sunflowers, like a scene from The Wizard of Oz. It touched down on the road next to Jason, and took the form of a horse, a misty steed with lightning flickering throughout its body. Tempest, Jason said, grinning broadly. Long time, my friend. The storm spirit reared and whinnied. Blackjack backed up skittishly. Easy, boy, Percy said. He's a friend too. He gave Jason an impressed look. Nice ride, Grace. Jason shrugged. I made friends with him during our fight at the wolf house. He's a free spirit, literally, but once in a while he agrees to help me out. Percy and Jason climbed on their respective horses. Piper had never been comfortable with Tempest. Riding full gallop on a beast that could vaporize at any moment made her a bit nervous. Nevertheless, she accepted Jason's hand and climbed on. Tempest raced down the road, with Blackjack soaring overhead. Fortunately, they didn't pass any cars, or they might have caused a wreck. In no time, they had arrived at the 32-mile marker, which looked exactly as Piper had seen it in her vision. Blackjack landed. Both horses pawed the asphalt. Neither looked pleased to have stopped so suddenly. Just when they'd found their stride, Blackjack whinnied. "You're right," Percy said. "No sign of the wine dude." "I beg your pardon?" "I beg your pardon?" said a voice from the field. Tempest turned so quickly, Piper almost fell off. The wheat parted, and the man from her vision stepped into view. He wore a wide-brimmed hat, wreathed in grapevines, a purple short-sleeved shirt, khaki shorts, and Birkenstocks with white socks. He looked maybe 30, with a slight potbelly, like a frat boy who hadn't yet realized college was over. "Did someone just call me the wine dude?" he asked in a lazy drawl. "It's Bacchus, please. Or Mr. Bacchus, or Lord Bacchus. Or sometimes, oh my God, please don't kill me, Lord Bacchus." "Hey." Percy urged Blackjack forward, though the Pegasus didn't seem happy about it. "You look different," Percy told the god. "Skinnier. Your hair is longer. And your shirt isn't so loud." The wine god squinted up at him. "Oh, yo. There, Alomar. What's up, man? Or lady. How's it going? I hope your night's going swell." "And shoot, thank you for the compliment. It means a lot." If you do care to read along, we read in the Mark of Athena here on chapter 10. The wine god squinted up at him. "What in blazes are you talking about? Who are you? And where is Ceres?" What series?" "I think he meant Ceres," Jason said. "The goddess of agriculture. You'd call her Demeter." He nodded respectfully to the god. "Lord Bacchus, do you remember me? I helped you with that missing leopard in Sonoma." Bacchus scratched his stubbly chin. Yeah. John Green. Jason Grace." "Whatever," the god said. "Did Ceres send you then?" "No, Lord Bacchus," Jason said. "Were you expecting to meet here with her?" The god snorted. "Well, I didn't come to Kansas to party, my boy. Ceres asked me here for a council of war. What with Gaia rising, the crops are withering. Droughts are spreading, the carpoi are in revolt. Even my grapes aren't safe. Ceres wanted a united front in the plant war." "The plant war," Percy said. "You're going to arm all the little grapes with tiny assault rifles?" The god narrowed his eyes. "Have we met?" "At Camp Half-Blood," Percy said. "I know you as Mr. D. Dionysus." "Ah!" Bacchus winced and pressed his hands to his temples. "Ugh!" For a moment, his image flickered. Piper saw a different person. Fatter, dumpier, in a much louder, leopard-patterned shirt. Then Bacchus returned to being Bacchus. "Ugh! Stop that!" he demanded. "Stop thinking about me in Greek. Percy blinked. But do you have any idea how hard it is to stay focused? Splitting headaches all the time. I never know what I'm doing or where I'm going. Constantly grumpy. That sounds pretty normal for you, Percy said. The god's nostrils flared. One of the grape leaves on his hat burst into flames. If we know each other from that other camp, it's a wonder I haven't already turned you into a dolphin. It was discussed, Percy assured him. I think you were just too lazy to do it. Piper had been watching with horrified fascination, the way she might watch a car wreck in progress. Now she realized Percy was not making things better, and Annabeth wasn't around to rein him in. Piper figured her friend would never forgive her if she brought Percy back transformed into a sea mammal. Lord Bacchus, she interrupted, slipping off Tempest's back. Piper, careful, Jason said. She shot him a warning glance. I've got this. Sorry to trouble you, my lord, she told the god. But actually, we came here to get your advice. Please, we need your wisdom. She used her most agreeable tone, pouring respect into her charm speak. The god frowned, but the purple glow faded in his eyes. You're well spoken, girl. Advice, eh? Very well. I would avoid karaoke. Really, theme parties in general are out. In these austere times, people are looking for a simple, low-key affair with locally produced organic snacks and... Not about parties, Piper interrupted. Although that's incredibly useful advice, Lord Bacchus. We were hoping you'd help us on our quest. She explained about the Argo II and their voyage to stop the giants from awakening Gaia. She told him what Nemesis had said, that in 6 days, Rome would be destroyed. She described the vision reflected in her knife, where Bacchus offered her a silver goblet. Silver goblet? The god didn't sound very excited. He grabbed a Diet Pepsi from nowhere and popped the top on the can. You drink Diet Coke. You drink Diet Coke, Percy said. I don't know what you're talking about, Bacchus snapped. As to this vision of the goblet, young lady, I have nothing for you to drink. Unless you want a Pepsi. Jupiter has put me under strict orders to avoid giving wine to minors. Bothersome, but there you have it. As for the giants, I know them well. I fought in the first giant war, you know. You can fight? Percy asked. Piper wished he hadn't sounded so incredulous. Dionysus snarled. His Diet Pepsi transformed into a 5-foot staff wreathed in ivy, topped with a pine cone. A thyrsus, Piper said, hoping to distract the god before he whacked Percy on the head. She'd seen weapons like that before in the hands of crazy nymphs, and wasn't thrilled to see one again, but she tried to sound impressed. Oh, what a mighty weapon! Indeed, Bacchus agreed. I'm glad someone in your group is smart. The pinecone is a fearsome tool of destruction. I was a demigod myself in the first giant war, you know. the son of Jupiter. Jason flinched. Probably he wasn't thrilled to be reminded that the wine dude was technically his big brother. Bacchus swung his staff through the air, though his potbelly almost threw him off balance. Of course, that was long before I invented wine and became an immortal. I fought side by side with the gods and some other demigod. Heracles, I think.
Hercules?
Piper suggested politely. Whatever, Bacchus said. Anyway, I killed the giant Ephialiates. Ephialtes, and his brother Otis. Horrible bores, those two. Pine cone in the face for the both of them. Piper held her breath. Sorry, I love that line. Pine cone in the face for the both of them. Piper held her breath. All at once, several ideas came together in her head. The visions in the knife. The lines of the prophecy they'd been discussing the night before. She felt like she used to when she was scuba diving with her father, and he would wipe her mask. And she would wipe her mask for her underwater. Suddenly, everything was clearer.
Lord Bacchus,
she said, trying to control the nervousness in her voice.
Those two giants, Ephialtes and Otis, would they happen to be twins?
The god seemed distracted by the thyrsus swinging, but he nodded. Yeah, twins. That's right. Piper turned to Jason. She could tell he was flowing. She could tell he was following her thoughts. Twins snuff out the angel's breath. In the blade of Catoptris, she'd seen two giants in yellow robes, lifting a jar from a deep pit.
That's why we're here,
Piper told the god.
You're part of our quest.
Bacchus frowned. I'm sorry, girl. I'm not a demigod anymore. I don't do quests.
But giants can only be killed by heroes and gods working together,
she insisted.
You're a god now, and the two giants we have to fight are Ephialtes and Otis. I think they're waiting for us in Rome. They're going to destroy the city somehow. The silver goblet I saw in my vision, maybe it's meant as a symbol for your help. You have to help us kill the giants.
Bacchus glared at her, and Piper realized she'd chosen her words poorly. My girl, he said coldly, I don't have to do anything. Besides, I only help those who give me proper tribute, which no one has managed to do in many, many centuries. Blackjack whinnied, uneasily. Piper couldn't blame him. She didn't like the sound of tribute. She remembered the Maenads, the crazed followers of Bacchus, who would tear up non-believers with their bare hands. And that was when they were in a good mood. Percy voiced the question that she was too scared to ask. What kind of tribute? Bacchus waved his hand dismissively. Nothing you could handle, insolent Greek. But I will give you some free advice. Since the girl does have some manners, Seek out Gaia's son, Forces. He always hated his mother. Not that I can blame him. He didn't have much use for his siblings, the twins, either. You'll find him in the city they named after that heroine, Atlanta. Piper hesitated. Oh, Atalanta. Piper hesitated.
You mean Atlanta?
That's the one. But this Forces, Jason said. Is he a giant? A titan? Bacchus laughed. Neither. Seek out the salt water. Salt water, Percy said. In Atlanta? Yes, Bacchus said. Are you hard of hearing? If anyone can give you insight on Gaia and the twins, it's Forces. Just watch out for him. What do you mean? Jason asked. The god glanced at the sun, which had climbed almost to high noon. It's unlike Ceres to be late, unless she sensed something dangerous in the area. Or... The god's face suddenly went slack. Or a trap. Well, I must be going. And if I were you, I'd do the same. Lord Bacchus, wait, Jason protested. The god shimmered and disappeared with a sound like a soda can top being popped. Kts. Alright, sorry. Wanted to see if I could do the sound of Bacchus poofing out. The wind rustled through the sunflowers. The horses paced in agitation. Despite the dry, hot day, Piper shivered. A cold feeling. Annabeth and Leo had both described a cold feeling.
Bacchus is right, she said. We need to leave.
Too late.
Oh, too late,
said a sleepy voice, humming through the fields all around them and resonating in the ground at Piper's feet. Percy and Jason drew their swords. Piper stood on the road between them, frozen with fear. Hold up. Let me see if I got some music for this. Perhaps this. Yeah.
Too late,
said a sleepy voice, humming through the fields all around them and resonating in the ground at Piper's feet. Percy and Jason drew their swords. Piper stood on the table. Piper stood on the road between them, frozen with fear. The power of Gaia was suddenly everywhere. The sunflowers turned to look at them. The wheat bent toward them like a million scythes.
Welcome to my party,
Gaia murmured. Her voice reminded Piper of corn growing, a crackling, hissing, hot and persistent noise she used to hear at Grandpa Tom's on those quiet nights in Oklahoma.
What did Bacchus say?
The goddess mocked.
A simple, low-key affair with organic snacks. Yes. For my snacks, I need only 2. The blood of a female demigod and the blood of a male. Piper, my dear, choose which hero will die with you.
Gaia,
Jason yelled. Stop hiding in the wheat.
show yourself!
Such bravado, Gaia hissed. But the other one, Percy Jackson, also has appeal. Choose Piper McLean, or I will.
Piper's heart raced. Gaia meant to kill her. That was no surprise. But what was this about choosing one of the boys? Why would Gaia let either of them go? It had to be a trap.
You're insane!
She shouted.
I'm not choosing anything for you.
Suddenly, Jason gasped. He sat up straight in his saddle.
Jason!
Piper cried.
What's wrong?
He looked down at her, his expression deadly calm. His eyes were no longer blue. They glowed solid gold.
Percy, help!
Piper stumbled back from Tempest, but Percy galloped away from them. He stopped 30 feet down the road and wheeled his Pegasus around. He raised his sword and pointed the tip toward Jason. One will die, Percy said, but the voice wasn't his. It was deep and hollow, like someone whispering from inside the barrel of a canyon. One will die. I will choose, Jason answered, in the same hollow voice.
No!
Piper yelled. All around her, the fields crackled and hissed, laughing in Gaia's voice as Percy and Jason charged at each other, their weapons ready. My word. Ooh. That was a shift in what do you call it? That was a shift in feel, wasn't it? Oh snap, it looks like we got quite a few folks. How's everybody doing? What did we think of the chapter? I saw a fair amount of this emote. Mood. Thank you, Sammy. I hope it didn't... Yo, atmosphere. Shoot, thank you. It's good to know I can rely on you guys. Yo, B-dubs. Welcome. Hope your night's been going smooth. That was pretty sweet. I hope, did my mic clip at all? It's something I want to know. Get the lo-fi jams going once again. Alright, no clipping on the mic. Yatta. Nice. Sorry, I'd be burping. Nice. That's good. The music, though? Was it too loud? Or was it just right? That was intense though, man. Guy just swooped on in there as quick as Bacchus was out. But I do like how Bacchus was like, alright, Ceres isn't usually this late. Oh, this is a trap. Goodbye! Music was just right. Nice. Right on. I'll try to be careful about the level of the volume with that. It's a little bit hard to tell because sometimes it's a-okay in my headphone, but it's too loud on the stream. Hard for me to tell. But yeah, shoot, glad I had the right effect. That's something that I've been trying to do recently. Is I have checked out a lot of like DMCA safe music and created a bunch of playlists just for various scenarios. So now, you know, in an effort to really give the story the credit that it deserves and up my game with the storytelling here, I have prepared a bunch of songs and such. And yeah, man, it's good to see that it is having the desired effect. I'm excited. I wanna go back and listen to at least that part in the stream. I know last time around, it was if you go check out the VOD, it was Leo pretending to be a bad boy and like coming in and going, "Leo's in the house? What's up, everybody?" And basically, you know, brushing the dust off his shoulder and pretending like he's the cat's pajamas. And so I played like a hype up song for him. I had fun with that one. Well, shoot. I was planning on calling it after that chapter. Let's see here. But this next chapter isn't all that long. It is an intense chapter though, so I'll leave it to you guys. Would you like to hear one more chapter? Won't exactly be a sleepy vibe though. Alright. I got one for reading. After what just happened? No way. No way it's intense. What are you talking about? Alright, let's see. Yeah, alright. We got the music. Yeah, it's like flipping, I think 6 pages or something. Let's do this. Let me know in the comments if the music is too loud. Chapter 11. Piper. If not for the horses, Piper would have died. Jason and Percy charged at each other, but Tempest and Blackjack balked enough for Piper to leap out of the way. She rolled to the edge of the road and looked back, dazed and horrified as the boys crossed short swords, gold against bronze. Sparks flew, their blades blurred, strike and parry, and the pavement trembled. The first exchange took only a second, but Piper couldn't believe the speed of their sword fighting. The horses pulled away from each other. Tempest thundered in protest, Blackjack flapping his wings.
Stop it!
Piper yelled. For a moment, Jason heeded her voice. His golden eyes turned towards her, and Percy charged, slamming his blade into Jason. Thank the gods Percy turned his sword. Maybe on purpose, maybe accidentally. So the flat of his hilt hit Jason's chest, but the impact was still enough to knock Jason off his mount. Blackjack cantered away as Tempest reared in confusion. The spirit horse charged into the sunflowers and dissipated into vapor. Percy struggled to turn his Pegasus around.
Percy!
Piper yelled.
Jason is your friend! Drop your weapon!
Percy's sword almost dropped. His sword arm dipped. Piper might have been able to bring him under control, but unfortunately, Jason got to his feet. Jason roared. A bolt of lightning arced out of the clear blue sky. It ricocheted off his gladius and blasted Percy off his horse. Blackjack whinnied and fled into the wheat fields. Jason charged at Percy. Jason charged at Percy, who was now on his back, his clothes smoking from the lightning blast. For a horrible moment, Piper couldn't find her voice. Gaia seemed to be whispering to her. You must choose one. Why not let Jason kill him?
No!
She screamed.
Jason, stop!
He froze, his sword 6 inches from Percy's face. Jason turned, the gold light in his eyes flickering uncertainly. I cannot stop. One must die. Something about that voice. It wasn't Gaia. It wasn't Jason. Whoever it was spoke haltingly, as if English was its second language.
Who are you?
Piper demanded. Jason's mouth twisted in a gruesome smile. We are the Eidolons. We will live again.
Eidolons.
Piper's mind raced. She studied all sorts of monsters at Camp Half-Blood, but that term wasn't familiar.
You're some sort of ghost?
He must die. Jason turned his attention back to Percy, but Percy had recovered more than either of them had realized. He swept out his leg and knocked Jason off his feet. Jason's head hit the asphalt with a nauseating gunk. Percy rose.
Stop it!
Piper screamed again, but there was no charm speak in her voice. She was shouting in sheer desperation. Percy raised Riptide over Jason's chest. Panic closed up Piper's throat. She wanted to attack Percy with her dagger, but she knew that wouldn't help. Whatever was controlling him had all of Percy's skill. There was no way she could beat him in combat. She forced herself to focus. She poured all of her anger into her voice.
Eidolon! Stop! Percy froze. Face me! Piper ordered. The son of the sea god turned. His eyes were gold instead of green. His face pale and cruel. Not at all like Percy's.
You have not chosen,
He said.
so this one will die.
You're a spirit from the underworld, Piper guessed. You're possessing Percy Jackson. Is that it? Percy sneered. I know, dude. Sorry about that timing. I forgot that one's in this playlist. Apologies. Percy sneered.
I will live again in this body. The Earth Mother has promised. I will go where I please, control whom I wish.
A wave of cold washed over Piper. Leo. That's what happened to Leo. He was being controlled by Eidolon. The thing in Percy's form laughed without humor.
Too late, you realize. You can trust no one.
Jason still wasn't moving. Piper had no help, no way to protect him. Behind Percy, something rustled in the wheat. Piper saw the tip of a black wing, and Percy began to turn toward the sound. Ignore it! She yelped. Look at me! Percy obeyed.
You cannot stop me. I will kill Jason Grace.
Behind him, Blackjack emerged from the wheat field, moving with surprising stealth for such a large animal. You won't kill him, Piper ordered, but she wasn't looking at Percy. She locked eyes with the Pegasus, pouring all her power into her words and hoping Blackjack would understand. You will knock him out. The charm speak washed over Percy. He shifted his weight indecisively.
I will knock him out.
Oh, sorry. Piper smiled. I wasn't talking to you. Blackjack reared and brought his hoof down on Percy. Percy crumpled to the pavement next to Jason. Oh gods! Piper ran to the boys. Blackjack, you didn't kill him, did you? The Pegasus snorted. Piper couldn't speak hoarse. But she thought he might have said, "Please, I know my own strength." Tempest was nowhere to be seen. The lightning steed had apparently returned to wherever storm spirits live on clear days. Piper checked on Jason. He was breathing steadily, but 2 knocks on the skull in 2 days couldn't have been good. Then she examined Percy's head. She didn't see any blood, but a large knot was forming where the horse had kicked him. We have to get them both back to the ship, she told Blackjack.
The Pegasus bobbed his head in agreement. He knelt to the ground so that Piper could drape Percy and Jason over his back. After a lot of hard work, unconscious boys were heavy. She got them reasonably secured, climbed onto Blackjack's back herself, and they took off for the ship. The others were a little surprised when Piper came back on a Pegasus with 2 unconscious demigods, while Frank and Hazel tended to Blackjack. Annabeth and Leo helped get Piper and the boys to the sickbay.
At this rate, we're gonna run out of ambrosia.
Coach Hedge grumbled as he tended to their wounds.
How come I never get invited on these violent trips?
Piper sat at Jason's side. She herself felt fine after a swig of nectar and some water, but she was still worried about the boys.
Leo, Piper said, are we ready to sail?
Yeah, but...
Set course for Atlanta. I'll explain later.
But... Okay. He hurried off. Annabeth didn't argue with Piper either. She was too busy examining the horseshoe-shaped dent on the back of Percy's head. P-dubs. Bro got bonked.
What hit him? She demanded. Blackjack,
Piper said.
What?
Piper tried to explain, while Coach Hedge applied some healing paste to the boys' heads. She'd never been impressed with Hedge's nursing abilities before, but he must have done something right. Either that, or the spirits that possessed the boys had also made them extra resilient. They both groaned and opened their eyes. Within a few minutes, Jason and Percy were sitting up in their berths and able to talk in complete sentences. Both had fuzzy memories of what had happened. When Piper described their duel on the highway, Jason winced. "Knocked out twice in 2 days," he muttered. "Some demigod." He glanced sheepishly at Percy. "Sorry, man. I didn't mean to blast you." Percy's shirt was peppered with burn holes. His hair was even more disheveled than normal. Despite that, he managed a weak laugh. "Not the first time. Your big sister got me good once at camp." "Yeah, but I could have killed you." "Or I could have killed you," Percy said. Jason shrugged. "If there'd been an ocean in Kansas, maybe." "I don't need an ocean."
Boys,
Annabeth interrupted.
I'm sure you both would have been wonderful at killing each other. But right now, you need some rest.
"Food first. Food first," Percy said. "Please. And we really need to talk. Bacchus said some things that don't..."
Bacchus.
Annabeth raised her hand.
Okay, fine. We need to talk. Mess hall, 10 minutes. I'll tell the others. And please, Percy, change your clothes. You smell like you've been run over by an electric horse.
Leo gave the helm to Coach Hedge again, after making the satyr promise he would not steer them into the nearest military base for fun. They gathered around the dining table, and Piper explained what had happened at Topeka 32. Their conversation with Bacchus, the trap sprung by Gaia, the eidolons that had possessed the boys.
Of course!
Hazel slapped the table, which startled Frank so much he dropped his burrito.
That's what happened to Leo too. So it wasn't my fault.
Leo exhaled.
I didn't start the World War III. I just got possessed by an evil spirit. That's a relief. That's a relief. But the Romans don't know that,
Annabeth said.
and why would they take our word for it?
We could contact Reyna, Jason suggested. She would believe us. Hearing the way Jason said her name, like it was a lifeline to his past, made Piper's heart sink. Jason turned toward her with a hopeful gleam in his eyes. You could convince her, Pipes. I know you could. Piper felt like all the blood in her body was draining into her feet. Annabeth looked at her sympathetically, as if to say, boys are so clueless. Even Hazel winced.
I could try,
She said half-heartedly.
but Octavian is the one we'd have to worry about. In my dagger blade, I saw him taking control of the Roman crowd. I'm not sure Reyna can stop him.
Jason's expression darkened. Piper didn't get any pleasure from bursting his bubble, but the other Romans, Hazel and Frank, nodded in agreement. She's right, Frank said. This afternoon when we went scouting, we saw eagles again. They were a long way off, but closing fast. Octavian is on a warpath. Hazel grimaced.
This is exactly the sort of opportunity Octavian has always wanted. He'll try to seize power. If Reyna objects, he'll say she's soft on the Greeks. As for eagles, it's like they could smell us.
They can, Jason said. Roman eagles can hunt demigods by their magical scent, even better than monsters can. This ship might conceal us somewhat, but not completely. Not from them. Leo drummed his fingers.
Great! I should have installed a smokescreen that makes the ship smell like a giant chicken nugget. Remind me to invent that next time. Great! I should have installed a smokescreen that makes the ship smell like chicken nuggets. Remind me to invent that next time.
Hazel frowned.
What is a chicken nugget?
Oh man! Leo shook his head in amazement.
That's right! You've missed like the last 70 years. Well, my apprentice, a chicken nugget doesn't matter.
Annabeth interrupted.
The point is, we'll have a hard time explaining the truth to the Romans, even if they believe us.
You're right. Jason leaned forward. We should just keep going. Once we're over the Atlantic, we'll be safe. At least from the Legion. Chicken nuggets do matter. I know that's a bold statement. Let me say that right now. Chicken nuggets matter. He sounded so depressed. Piper didn't know whether to feel sorry for him or resentful.
How can you be sure? She asked. Why wouldn't they follow us?
He shook his head. You heard Reyna talking about the ancient lands. They're much too dangerous. Roman demigods have been forbidden to go there for generations. Even Octavian couldn't get around that rule. Frank swallowed a bite of burrito, like it had turned to cardboard in his mouth.
So, if we go there,
We'll be outlaws as well as traitors, Jason confirmed. Any Roman demigod would have the right to kill us on sight. But I wouldn't worry about that. If we get across the Atlantic, they'll give up on chasing us. They'll assume that we'll die in the Mediterranean, the Mare Nostrum. The Mare Nostrum. Percy pointed his pizza slice at Jason. You, sir, are a ray of sunshine. Jason didn't argue. The other demigods stared at their plates, except for Percy, who continued to enjoy his pizza. Where he put all that food, Piper didn't know. The guy could eat like a satyr. So let's plan ahead, Percy suggested. And make sure we don't die. Mr. D... Bacchus... Gah. Do I have to call him Mr. B now? Anyway, he mentioned the twins in Ella's prophecy. 2 giants, Otis and, something that started with an F?
Ephialtes.
Oh, Ephialtes, Jason said.
Twin giants. Like Piper saw in her blade. Like Piper saw in her blade.
Annabeth ran her fingers along the rim of her cup.
I remember a story about twin giants. They tried to reach Mount Olympus by piling up a bunch of mountains.
Frank nearly choked.
well, that's great. Giants who can use mountains like building blocks. And you can say Bacchus killed these guys with a pine cone on a stick?
Something like that, Percy said. I don't think we should count on his help this time. He wanted a tribute, and he made it pretty clear it would be a tribute we couldn't handle. Silence fell over the table. Piper could hear Coach Hedge above deck singing, "Blow the Man Down." Except he didn't know the lyrics, so he mostly sang,
Blah, blah, dum-de-dum-dum. Blow the man down. Blow the man down.
Piper couldn't shake the feeling that Bacchus was meant to help them. The giant twins were in Rome. They were keeping something the demigods needed. Something in that bronze jar. Whatever it was, she got the feeling it held the answer. The answer to sealing the doors of death. The key to endless death. She also felt sure they could never defeat the giants without Bacchus's help. And if they couldn't do that in 5 days, Rome would be destroyed. And Hazel's brother, Nico, would die. On the other hand, if the vision of Bacchus offering her a silver goblet was false, maybe the other visions didn't have to come true either. Especially the one of her, Percy, and Jason drowning. Maybe that was just symbolic.
The blood of a female demigod,
Gaia had said.
and the blood of a male. Piper, my dear, choose which hero will die with you. She wants 2 of us,
Piper murmured. Everyone turned to look at her. Piper hated being the center of attention. Maybe that was strange for a child of Aphrodite. But she'd watched her dad, the movie star, deal with fame for years. She remembered when Aphrodite had claimed her at the bonfire in front of the entire camp, zapping her with a magic beauty queen makeover. That had been the most embarrassing moment of her life. Even here, with only 6 other demigods, Piper felt exposed.
They're my friends,
She told herself,
it's okay.
but she had a strange feeling, as if more than 6 sets of eyes were watching her.
Today on the highway,
She said,
Gaia told me that she needed the blood of only 2 demigods. 1 female, 1 male. She asked me to choose which boy would die.
Jason squeezed her hand. But neither of us died. You saved us.
I know, it's just... Why would she want that?
Leo whistled softly. Guys, remember at the Wolf House? Our favorite ice princess, Kione? She talked about spilling Jason's blood. How it would taint the place for generations. Maybe demigod blood has some kind of power? Oh! Percy set down his 3rd slice of pizza. He leaned back and stared at nothing, as if the horse kick to his head had just now registered.
Percy?
Annabeth grabbed his arm. Or gripped his arm. Oh! Bad, he muttered. Bad. Bad. He looked across the table at Frank and Hazel. You guys remember Polybides?
The giant who invaded Camp Jupiter?
Hazel said.
The anti-Poseidon you whacked in the head with a Terminus statue? Yes, I think I remember him.
I had a dream, Percy said, when we were flying to Alaska. Polybides was talking to the Gorgons, and he said he wanted to take me prisoner, not killed. He said, I want that one chained at my feet so I can kill him when the time is ripe. His blood shall water the stones of Mount Olympus and wake the Earth Mother. Piper wondered if the room's temperature controls were broken, because she suddenly couldn't stop shaking. It was the same way she'd felt on the highway outside Topeka.
You think the giants would use our blood? The blood of 2 of us?
I don't know, Percy said. But until we figure it out, I suggest we all try to avoid getting captured. Jason grunted. That I agree with.
But how do we figure it out?
Hazel asked.
The mark of Athena, the twins, Ella's prophecy. How does it all fit together?
Annabeth pressed her hands against the edge of the table.
Piper, you told Leo to set our course for Atlanta. Right,
Piper said.
Bacchus told us we should seek out... What was his name?
Forces, Percy said. Annabeth looked surprised, like she wasn't used to her boyfriend having the answers.
You know him?
Percy shrugged. I didn't recognize the name at first. Then Bacchus mentioned saltwater, and ding, it rang a bell. Phorcys is an old sea god. From before my dad's time. Never met him, but supposedly he's a son of Gaia. I still don't understand what a sea god would be doing in Atlanta. Leo snorted. What's a wine god doing in Kansas?
What's a wine god doing in Kansas? Gods are weird. Anyway, we should reach Atlanta by noon tomorrow. Unless something else goes wrong.
Don't even say that, Annabeth muttered. It's getting late. We should all get some sleep. Wait, Piper said. Once more, everyone looked at her. She was rapidly losing her courage, wondering if her instincts were wrong. But she forced herself to speak. There's one last thing, she said. The Eidolons, the possessing spirits, they're still here, in this room. The Eidolons, the possessing spirits, they're still here, in this room. Well, alright. A little foreboding note to leave off on. Always a good thing. Man, thank you guys for suggesting one more chapter. This was a heckin' fun time. And I gave it my all, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully I'll get better and better at, picking the right music for the right time. I do really apologize for the the Christmas music popping up out of nowhere. Don't worry about it. Sorry, that was funny. But at least we got a giggle out of it, yeah. Gosh. Lamau is right. Goodness. Yeah, this has been a great stream, and I hope you tune in tomorrow. I believe I've got a D&D game at 10 p.m., but I'm gonna try to hop on at around 6. So it'll be a much earlier stream than this one. My usual time frame is around that 8 p.m. marker. But yeah, those that are new and the faces I recognize, thank you for being here. Alright, let me load up that outro music. Guys, as always, remember to take the merriment that we found tonight. Let it set you at ease as you lay your head on your pillow, and let it carry you into tomorrow. Remember to get good sleep, to eat good food, and love yourself and those around you. I pray that this stream made your day a bit better, and that come tomorrow you continue to spread the merriment, as I will. Alright, much love you guys, and hope to see you next time. Alright, later. Bye.